Hey everybody, it's Kevin Carr, and today we're talking about split squats. So the split squat is our main unilateral lower body exercise that we use at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. So pretty much everybody that comes to see us is going to do a split squat at some point. And today I'm going to talk to you about how do we cue and coach this exercise, and then how do we progress and regress it for different clients that come into the gym. About 80% of the people that see us can usually start with a basic split squat on the ground, body weight. But in some extreme circumstances, when people are injured or maybe they're really deconditioned, we might have to start with a bilateral squat or maybe an assisted split squat using a Kaiser, a TRX, or a pole or something to help assist them off the ground. But once they master that, we're going to just introduce them to the regular body weight split squat. And when we do that, we teach our beginners from the bottom up. And I think it's important to stress this because it's going to help them learn how to set up in the right position. If we let our beginners start from the top, one of two things usually happens. They either end up overly extended with a lot of pressure on this anterior hip and their pelvis and their lumbar spine, or they end up too jammed up here with this rear hip inflection and all their weight falling over their front foot. Neither of those positions are going to be really ideal to produce force, and those compensations can typically lead to them getting some sort of injury for repeatedly loading that pattern they're not prepared for. So what we're going to do is we teach them from the bottom up in this position, because this is the more complicated position. If they start right here, they'll be in the right position when they get to the top. So I want to see that this knee is directly under this hip or maybe slightly behind an extension, and on this front leg, I want to see that this knee is forward just over the middle of the foot. I don't want it too far forward so the heel is up and it's way past the toes. And I don't want it behind the ankle either. We want a little bit of forward shin so we start to stress the patellar tendon. And we're in a sprint-like position. It should almost look like we're running, right? I want to see that their torso is stacked. I don't want their belly button way out like this. I want to see that their rib cage is down. Nice strong core position here. But I also don't want them flexed forward, right? So it should be in a pretty straight line coming up, okay? Hands behind the head I like because it just gets them to be tall. Again, I don't want them overextended, but if they're comfortable here and they're able to not overly hunch forward, I think that's fine too, okay? Have them come straight up, tap, right back. At the top, I get this question a lot. I don't want them to fully lock out the knee and push through the heel. I say leave just a couple degrees of flexion left in that knee, okay? So don't lock it all the way tight, especially when we start to overly load. I don't want to stack those joints. Okay, so right about here, that's going to be about an ideal split squat position for our beginning clients, right? And that might take some people a while. A lot of people don't naturally have great single leg hip stability if they haven't been training unilateral exercises. So don't feel like you have to rush them to add load, okay? Make sure they look solid on both sides. You're typically going to see a little asymmetry. Build that up for a couple weeks if necessary before we start adding external load. When we start adding external load, our next thing we're going to move to is a goblet position. So we're going to hold the weight at the chest. So grab a dumbbell here. When we go goblet position, we want to see 2 points of contact if we're using a dumbbell, one up by the collarbone, one at the bottom of the sternum. Hold it tight with the elbows tucked down tight here, okay? Again, once they understand their spacing, it's okay to have them start from the top down. Typically, I'll draw a line on the ground with a piece of chalk or tape so the clients know how far to space out. Then they can start from the top and work down because it's going to be hard to start from a dead stop with an external load, okay? So from here, hold it at the chest, drop down, tap, come right back up. Now this is important. What we're going to do is we're going to load with goblet position as long as we possibly can, okay? I want them to exhaust as much as they can hold at their chest before we start to go towards a suitcase, a double suitcase load, because I want them to build torso stability. I want them to build strength through their paraspinals, through their core musculature, to build torso stability. We find that if we spend time doing that in split squat, by the time they exhaust it, sometimes we have 14, 15-year-old kids with like a 90-pound dumbbell at their chest. They can have trouble even getting it up there. Then when we start to move towards double suitcase, these kids are really strong and they can get strong really quickly through their lower body. We're making them earn it through their torso first, right? So I want to see that they exhaust it to the point where they can't even hold that dumbbell anymore. Then we'll progress our athletes to doing 2 dumbbell split squat, okay? We find that if they're holding like a 90-pound dumbbell at their chest and goblet, 45 in each hand is going to be really easy because they've earned that torso stability. So typically they can make a big jump and load, and then start to really load the legs, okay? So we're gonna start to load this for a few weeks in this double suitcase position and split squat. From there, after we've loaded that for a bit, we'll typically make the jump to a rear foot elevated split squat. So I have this great split squat stand. You might use a bench or a box or something to elevate the rear foot. This awesome split squat stand from Perform Better works great, okay? And what I wanna do, I just wanna make a point about the elevation of the rear foot. As you can see here, it's pretty low. Typically, when people do a split squat with their back foot on a bench, it's about 18 inches off the ground. And it's important to realize a lot of people are gonna struggle to have that much hip extension. Being able to extend that hip that far back is gonna really limit them, and it's gonna force them to compensate by overextending their lumbar spine, overextending their pelvis, and hanging off that rear hip. So I encourage people to try to get a low rear foot on these rear foot elevated split squats. So for me, this is just on the second notch. If that means you have to elevate the front foot and still use a bench so that you're closer to the bench height, I would recommend doing that, okay? Now, when we set up for rear foot elevated split squat, it's just gonna be a slightly different setup. It's gonna be a little bit more of a forward lean because of the increased demand for hip extension, okay? So again, have them start at the bottom so they can get themselves comfortable, okay? See, I have just the top of my foot, I'm not digging my toe in, it's just like my shoelaces if I had shoes on, okay? This knee's over the middle of my foot, but if you look at my torso, I'm gonna lean forward a little bit more. You can almost see that my torso and rear hip is parallel to this front shin, right? It's almost like two parallel angles. It should look like I'm sprinting, okay? That's gonna allow me to load this hip a little bit more and drive up and out of this position, as opposed to being vertical where I'm hanging on my spine, hanging on my hip, and jamming up this rear pelvis area here. I wanna get a little bit more tension in my front side abdominals, okay? Again, you could load goblet, or hopefully by the time we progress here, we're holding a dumbbell in each hand. I wanna see, again, forward position of my torso, and I'm gonna drive up and out, come down, tap the knee, up and out, okay, under control. Again, treat this as a main lift. We load this just like we would a deadlift, as some people might load a squat or a bench. It's heavy, sets of 5, sets of 6. Treat this as a main lift and you're gonna see huge gains in your lower body. Don't treat this as an assistance lift. I think that if you follow this progression, start with split squat, work our way up through body weight, goblet, and double suitcase, and move to rear foot elevated split squat, you're really gonna like the results. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.